Morning, everybody. So today I figured I'd come in, since my husband had another cancer diagnosis, and right now we're just kind of in the waiting periods. I think on the next week, maybe he's got a meeting with his team of oncologists, to go over what our next steps are. But I just wanted to make a video about what I do as a caretaker. Some suggestions, because I know the first time around I was not doing all of the right things. So anyone who's a caretaker, um, just some suggestions on my part that can help you to help them and also help yourself. So when someone's going through cancer, it's already stressful enough. I'm sure inside they're just trying to keep a brave face. So as their caretaker, you have to keep things as unstressful as possible for them, which I know as a caretaker, and this is somebody you love, and you want them to fight for themselves, and maybe it seems like they're not fighting for themselves, and I know that that's how I felt when my husband first was diagnosed. It didn't seem like he was really researching or trying anything, and I'd continually come at him with, "Oh, have you looked at this, or did you look at this?" And he didn't want to talk about it or do anything, and that was frustrating for me because I just wanted him to get better, and it didn't seem like he even cared, because I was afraid I was going to lose him. But my constant attacks and beratements against him weren't really helping the whole situation. And the way I learned to deal with that was, it's like I felt like I didn't have control over the situation, which I didn't. I had no control over the situation. There was literally nothing I could do to make him better. But the way that I redirected that focus was I just started to try and bring healthy food into the house. So I redirected my way of managing that and my way of having some kind of control over anything, by keeping the house sterile and clean, um, preparing all of the food, making sure that I was feeding him stuff that wasn't feeding the cancer, um, and I was feeding him stuff that was starving the cancer and not feeding him stuff that was feeding the cancer. So in my way, I was researching food and dietary things I could do for him that would be helpful, and keeping the environment he was in sterile and healthy, for him. And that was how I contributed, and how I, in my own way, maintained some kind of control over what was happening. Um, Even though I couldn't control what was going on with him. And there are other ways you can help, obviously. Go with him to their doctor's appointments, come prepared with a list of questions. Nowadays, you can use Chat GPT. Like, it's super helpful, especially depending on what kind of cancer you're going through. Prior to a visit, type in whatever the cancer is, whatever information you have, and ask Chat GPT what kind of questions you should be asking. And then when you go to the appointment, when people are going through chemo, their minds aren't so great. They're foggy. They can't really remember stuff. So you can also help them by making sure that they schedule their appointments. You can help them by writing down what's going on. I know for me, the first time around, it helped me to go on, I had all of our information on Facebook that I was sharing with all of our friends. After each visit, I would do kind of here's what happened, here's what's going on, detailed list of things, because it's also overwhelming that at least I had something to go back to later when I was like, wait, what was happening then? What do we know right now? And if something went wrong in the future, I could kind of look back later because it was already on our Facebook page. when we had kind of a group for people who wanted to know what was going on. Um, but, those are just some things that can help. I know it was very stressful for me in the beginning. And I know, like, there's other things too. Like, you feel, as a caregiver, you feel bad trying to take any time for yourself. Um, and it's almost like you run into people and there's like this automatic, like, guilt that you're out trying to have any kind of fun. And you feel like you need to explain to the people, like, I haven't done anything in months. This is my first time out, like, don't judge me for, like, trying to do something for myself. And I myself would run into people whose partners were going through cancer, and I'd be like, dude, you're fine. Like, I get it. um, but there's also, like, something, like, even after, like, your partner's gotten better, like, the whole time you've been, like, holding it together for both of you. And they're finally better and you can finally fall apart. That's a thing. Like, I was, like, severely depressed for, like, a year after he had finally gotten into remission the first time. And it took me a while to get out of that because it was like I could finally, like, not be okay for once. And people, they don't realize that, you're just trying to be strong for that other person. But just throwing some things out about what you can do, especially if it's the first time you're ever dealing with cancer. If you really want to help that person, try not to add to the stress. Try to keep things calm. And, you might get some reluctance. You might get some reluctance from people if you're trying to introduce a healthy diet with them. You might need to work on some compromises and be like, what if, we did the red meat like once a week? Would you be willing to make any concessions? Because this is not helping, your cancer. And, I want you to be healthy. Or you could just come at them, hand them the information, be like, please read this. It all depends on the person you're dealing with. I know my husband was not happy when I was like, you need to cut the red meat out and the refined sugar and the refined white breads. He was not happy. The second time he got cancer, he was more receptive. The third time, he didn't even argue with me at all. He's pretty much on board now. So you're going to get a little resistance in the beginning. The more times the cancer comes back, the more receptive they're probably going to be to taking those lifestyle changes. But, a lot of people don't realize that being a caretaker can also take a lot out of you. And, my part as a caretaker, I just wanted to start making videos to kind of share with other caretakers so they also can at least benefit from some of the things I've learned. ChatGPT is, like, super helpful, especially when you really don't know where to start or what to look for. You kind of go on there and you just ask it questions and it can kind of point you in the right direction instead of, like, going down, like, Facebook research, downward spirals. At least ChatGPT will give you, like, relatively factual information. It's not 100%, but it's closer than finding a bunch of unverified sites. But anyway, for those of you dealing with cancer, or those of you that may possibly eventually know someone who's dealing with cancer, I hope this helps your day.
If I wasn't done loving you.